How's it going? And welcome back to their Pokemon Unite video here on YouTube. Yesterday, after 8 hours of downtime, we had the biggest, most impactful patch Pokemon Unite has ever had, in addition to rolling in Season 4 of Ranked and a new Battle Pass season with a fantastic Demon Slayer Blastoise skin. We also had what are likely the most impactful balance changes we've ever had to Pokemon Unite to date. Let's talk about what they are and why I think they're a big deal. To start, this balance patch has finally kind of torn the band-aid off, rebalancing held items. I've talked in the past about how not buffing or nerfing held items, I think, is one spot that's really been kind of blind in their balance of the game so far, and I'm really glad they're finally starting to experiment with this. In this first balance pass on held items, we have nerfs to 2 of honestly the 4 best held items in the game, and I hope in the future we also start seeing buffs to some of these less played items that aren't quite as good. But to start, Buddy Barrier has a huge change here. Not only is the passive HP on Buddy Barrier from the levels on it reduced, it's now in line with what Score Shield has, but the shield that Buddy Barrier gives when you Unite move has been reduced from 40% at the maximum to 25% at the maximum. And on top of this, multiple Buddy Barrier shields no longer stack on top of one another. This change, I think, is actually more impactful than even the 15% reduction here. And this is still relevant because now, even if your whole team has Buddy Barriers, you can't just all pop Unites at the same time inside of a team fight and keep your squishiest carry character healthy with a ton of shields. This is going to require you to have very precise sequencing on your team with your Unite moves, or frankly, this could likely be the change that means Buddy Barrier is no longer a must-play item on most characters in competitive play, opening up some build variety in a fantastic way. Now, Score Shield. While I think Buddy Barrier is still very playable, even if not required, I think they butchered Score Shield here. So not only is the internal cooldown going from 6 seconds to 20 seconds, which is already a big change all on its own, the shield from Score Shield is now consumed before any other shields. And what this means is you can no longer Buddy Barrier or use other skills that provide shields to make your Score Shield more effective. No longer can you Unite in with Greedent or Crustle and then get that guaranteed cap. They only have to do 10% of your health to break that Score shield and stop you from getting that dunk. I think this is a fantastic change. Both of these changes honestly feel like they're targeted at the scoring compositions that we've seen play in some of these tournaments, and I think making those compositions less powerful is a net positive for the game overall, because the type of gameplay that they encourage is really pretty dry. There's no team fights, objectives gets flipped, and players kind of play past each other, and with that being less viable, we'll see more people playing for actual engagements inside of high-level competitive Unite, which I think is a huge net positive. Now, we also have changes to a variety of Pokemon in the game, and most of these are pretty good, I think. So, Covet. Instead of just being flat out unstoppable, anytime you would be stunned or slowed, it just gets converted to a slow. So you're no longer just hopelessly hammering on a Greedent that's guaranteed to get away. While Greedent's still going to be difficult to catch, it should no longer be impossible to catch. Blissey had a buff to kind of 2 of its moves. So Egg Bomb and Soft Boiled now share charges with each other and encourage you to take both of them. And Egg Bomb was a less taken skill, and honestly Soft Boiled was too. And now these play together, so you can have a ton of eggs to throw at people if you need to be offensive and provide suppression and crowd control, or you could just heal a bunch having 4 charges between the 2 of them. The Duraludon nerf is actually one that surprises me a little bit. They don't have an exact calculation on this because Dragon Pulse is messy to calculate, but the estimated nerf at about 30% is a pretty significant drop. I'm interested to see if Duraludon will still feel competitive after this. It was definitely still competitive after its first rounds of nerfs, but this could potentially change that, but we're going to need to get some experience with it. Ninetales got a strict nerf on Aura Veil, with the healing on it being cut a little bit more than in half, which I think is a good change. So you're still powerful and have the movement that Aura Veil provides, but you no longer have an incredible amount of sustain, which I think that makes sense. Ninetales is an attacker, and it was really filling more of a support or even tankier role with Aura Veil, and that definitely isn't what the character should be doing. Blizzard was changed, so the stun duration was decreased, but you're more likely to stun because the area that you're hitting is bigger. So this isn't a strict downgrade so much as it's a side grade. I think this is likely a net positive for Blizzard players, and perhaps Avalanche Blizzard is a skill set worth exploring on Ninetales, again, even with Aura Veil being still reasonable. Talonflame is a change that I think is good overall. I think Talonflame was arguably one of, if not the best central area character. They made a couple of important changes here. Brave Bird has a very small damage reduction on it here, which I think is fine. The burst from Brave Bird was really incredible, but more importantly, Talonflame is no longer in the group of characters that's the fastest Unite recharge in the game. Cooldown being increased from 89 seconds to 100 seconds, so still relatively quick, but no longer Pikachu or Azumarill level recharge, and the damage that this does was dropped as well. Lucario is taken another small nerf, and I think that this nerf on Lucario is actually moving the character in the right direction. The big thing that they're changing is the ratio, and for people that aren't familiar with what this means in terms of patch notes, so these are described, the ratio refers to how much extra damage the attack does based on the stat that it keys off of. So basically this does 27% less based on your attack stat, which means that this is a bigger debuff to attack weight stacking Lucarios than it is to normal other Lucarios that aren't attack weight stacking. I think this focuses, this to me says they understand what the current issue is with Lucario, which is that with attack weight stack specifically, Lucario was definitely too strong. Is this enough to open up diversity in that top path? We don't know yet. We're going to have to wait and see. But I think this change shows that they understand the kind of core issue and they're working to address it without making the character unplayable, which is a net positive. Hoopa. Bunch of changes here, making the character almost strictly worse than before. So Trick Shadow Ball, which was considered the optimal moveset on Hoopa, has been made strictly worse. The shield range and auto attacks are reduced on Trick. It has a longer cooldown, and the healing on Trick Plus was dropped a pretty significant amount here by 15%. The stun length was reduced on Shadow Ball. That's excellent. And on top of that, they also gave a buff to one of Hoopa's lesser used moves. I think Phantom Force was definitely the worst move inside of Hoopa's kit, and it not only got more stun / slow, but its cooldown was also reduced. So perhaps Phantom Force is going to be a move worth exploring inside of Hoopa's kit. Zerora got a strict upgrade, but probably not one that's good enough to meaningfully change anything. So you have more shield on Zerora, and you have a little bit more base damage, but I'd kind of be surprised if Zerora is playable yet. I really think they just need to take this character and pull all of its moves down by a level. There's no reason that Zerora should be the only character in the game that doesn't get its Unite move to level 10. Please fix that. Aegis Slash. I honestly was shocked that Aegis Slash was getting buffs, but I'm also not going to complain about it as someone who plays a lot of Aegis Slash. So our boosted attacks are strictly better than before in both sword and shield mode. We have more just damage from attack, as well as 1 extra % of the target's max HP, meaning you're really good at getting those last hits on things that have a lot of HP. Our shield form has more healing than before, giving you more sustain when you stay in defense mode. And then Sacred Sword here is actually the only attack they buffed on Aegis Slash, which feels validating to me that my read that Shadow Claw was probably the optimal move to be taking prior. But that being said, I'm definitely going to have to experiment with Sacred Sword again here, because Sacred Sword was made strictly better and the stun on it was made longer. And I think one of the things that made Shadow Claw much better than Sacred Sword was the fact that the toss-up at the end was better CC. But if Sacred Sword has a longer stun duration, that changes that dynamic potentially. Trevenant is probably the biggest winner when it comes to buffs in this patch. I think all strict upgrades on this character. Branch Poke, the starting dash that you keep till level 7, now slows. It also it slows more, sorry, and it also heals you now where previously it didn't, and it does more damage. Curse, strict upgrade on all of its damage, while a downgrade on the amount of damage that it deals to you. Pain Split heals you more, and Phantom Forest, the Unite move, has a shorter cooldown on it. So just across the board, all strict upgrades to Trevenant. I think Trevenant is another one of those characters that already felt pretty close. I would honestly be kind of surprised if Trev is not a competitive character after these changes. Cramorant. They did what I've been asking for. They made Air Slash a little bit better, giving it a 5th blade, but I don't think Air Slash and Dive is the optimal boosted on Cramorant to begin with. I really like this character as a suppression character, so Surf and Hurricane is my preference, and they just put some power back into the Unite move. They made the Unite move cooldown be a little bit shorter, and they put more damage into it, which is great. Greninja also got a buff. I was actually a little surprised to see this buff happen. So Greninja actually had the longest cooldown on a Unite move in the game, and they've reduced it to bring it in line with other all damage carries like Decidueye and Cinderace, but it's just a strict upgrade on a character that was already seeing competitive play, so this can only help Greninja. Strict upgrade. Azumarill had some bug fixes here. So Bubble related to movement speed reduction on enemies, so perhaps it wasn't slowing and it was supposed to be. Whirlpool, someone in a Discord I was in mentioned that Whirlpool would stop getting critical hits if it knocks someone out, even if you're only hitting one person afterwards. This should also be a strict upgrade on this. I don't know that like minor bug fix updates to either of these are going to be enough to make Azumarill a really playable character. I really like Azumarill's kit, but it's definitely a little bit weak overall in the stats department. And something else to note is that the nerfs to Buddy Barrier are indirectly nerfs to characters like Azumarill and Pikachu and Aegis Slash and others that have fast Unite recharges, because one of the upsides to having a fast Unite recharge is you got to activate Buddy Barrier more frequently. And now that Buddy Barrier has been made strictly worse than prior, all of these builds that were looking to gain power from having that effect more often have a less powerful effect more frequently. Now, in addition to these patch notes, there's a bunch of other fantastic things coming. There is the data miner EV Chico or something like that. I'm probably saying the name wrong. We know our next 2 characters coming to Pokemon Unite are going to be Espeon and Delphox. Espeon is due in the middle of May, and then Delphox is due at the beginning of June. Sometimes characters are fan favorites, I know, so excited to see them coming. If you look in the video description down below, I'm going to go ahead and link to early gameplay from the Espeon that was provided. At any rate, what do you think of these balance patch changes? I think most all of them seem really good. I think there's a couple that make me go, huh? Like, I'm not sure Duraludon needed to be hit again, and the Greninja buff surprised me, but overall, I think this is a huge net positive of the game. I think the changes to both Buddy Barrier and Score Shield were long overdue and very welcome. At any rate, thanks for hanging out, and make sure to stop by again tomorrow for their Pokemon Unite highlight of gameplay here on YouTube. And if you didn't see it this morning, I also posted a Zerina gameplay video up on the channel, so be sure to check that out as well. Thanks for watching as always, folks. Peace.